call your attention to the Open Meetings Act posted here in the council chambers. If you now please join me for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Greenquist.
Here.
Arms.
Here.
Webb.
Here.
McCarthy.
Here.
Aaron. Norton.
Here.
Boston.
Here.
Hildebrand.
Here.
Okay, with that, I would look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion second. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Motion carries.
We then look for a motion to approve the full agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion second. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Motion carries.
All right, that brings us to item number 25 on the council agenda. We have three different special presentations tonight. The first is a proclamation for the month of November 2023 as Read Aloud to a Child Month. I will read the proclamation. It reads as such: whereas literacy is the fundamental building block of all learning and is essential to the growth and success of every child in our city, and reading to children enlarges their vocabulary and enhances their listening skills, thereby fostering intellectual growth and a more positive attitude toward reading. And reading to a child is a simple and priceless act that benefits both adult and child, positively contributing to family literacy and strengthening the bond between a parent and child. And whereas Read Aloud to Your Child for 20 minutes a day is a nationally recognized program that has been in existence for more than 25 years. And whereas Read Aloud Norfolk, the Norfolk Public Library, Norfolk area schools, and other organizations representing parents, teachers, librarians, and concerned citizens advocate for reading aloud to children because it fosters healthy interaction between adults and children. And whereas reading aloud to children will enhance family literacy and the well-being of young people throughout our city. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Josh Moning, Mayor of the City of Norfolk, by the power vested in me, do hereby proclaim November 2023 as Read Aloud to a Child Month in the City of Norfolk and the surrounding area, and encourage all parents, teachers, librarians, and other caring adults to read aloud to a child every day. Is there someone here to receive the proclamation tonight? Okay. All right. It's not Pierce. Okay. Well, we will get that to him. Okay. So we will move forward then to item 26, and this is a distinguished citizenship recognition. This recognition goes to Lucy Yost. This People Power Award goes to Lucy for her act of distinguished citizenship and good neighborliness, in this instance, for her efforts replacing and repairing missing or damaged markers at the grave sites of veterans in Prospect Hill. And whereas People Power Awards are distributed to those Norfolkans who, of their own accord, motivated by goodwill and loving and caring for their neighbors as themselves, commit acts of extraordinary thoughtfulness, generosity, and compassion, demonstrating the power of people helping people and neighbor helping neighbor throughout our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Josh Moning, Mayor of the City of Norfolk, along with the Norfolk City Council, hereby recognize Lucy Yost for her extraordinary act of citizenship. Lucy, would you come forward, please? Those are the fun parts of this job. All right, item number 27, recognition of the 2023 Norfolk 101 Citizens Academy. Nick Stevenson, the City of Norfolk's Nick Stevenson is here to tell us a little bit about the Citizens Academy. Go ahead.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the graduation ceremony for the 2023 class of Norfolk 101 Citizens Academy. Quick rundown of what this class is. It is a 9-week class where citizens sign up and they once a week get a behind-the-scenes look at different divisions throughout the city. We started in late September, and we finished tonight with a meeting with the mayor and city administrator. But throughout this time, we look at WPC, the transfer station. We saw fire. We saw the city jail, police station just before a prisoner was brought in, so we lucked out there. But I would like to, before we recognize everybody, just give a big shout out to all the citizens that took part, because it's a big commitment. 9 weeks, 3 hours a week, giving up their time to learn more about the city, and gave them some homework along the way as well, so they stepped up. But I think one of the best parts about this, they get to see the greatest asset, and that's the city employees, though, that make the city run every day. So, Mayor, I'll ask you to come down, and we do have some certificates for those who are graduating tonight.
All right, thanks once again to everyone who participated. It is a time commitment and it's a sacrifice of some sorts, but it's always gratifying to meet with these groups at the end of the process because everybody's learned something, and that kind of positive interaction and constructive engagement with your city is gratifying to us in these positions. So thank you. Thank you also to city staff, Nick, for leading this up, the departments that come in after hours to help do this. It's a big effort. Thank you. All right, that takes us to our regular agenda. And item number 28, I would look for a motion to consider approval for staff to advertise for the sale of city-owned property located at 1001 North Dale Drive.
I will offer for consideration approval for staff to advertise for the sale of city-owned property.
Second.
Motion second, and for some background on this, we'll hear from Lyle Lutt, Operations Manager. Lyle.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and staff. Yes, I'm going to talk to you tonight about the possible sale of 1001 North Dale Drive. Quick story briefly that some of you may have noticed. The initial agenda item that got sent out had a hyperlink to Google Streets View. Somewhere in the publishing process and disseminating that packet of information, if you clicked on it, you'll notice that it landed on a piece of property in Mongolia. near China. I assure you that is not the location 6,500 miles away. It's the one that's about 3/4 of a mile here. So agenda had to be republished or removed.
There's
that
no
way.
international conquest
There
here?
is not. There is not. So this parcel here that I think Val is running the machine has it posted up there in general. The top left corner is 13th and Georgia, just slight in the highlighted red area there. In your packet, your agenda packet, there's a brief history back in 2011 or so. There was a fire on this parcel, rendered the house, the property useless. City ended up taking possession of it, cleaning the parcel off, taking ownership of the title, cleaning it and whatnot. And it's been in the city ownership since then. It's a wonderful lot and a wonderful community that will make for a great place for somebody to have a beautiful home. If you decide to go forward with this, probably tomorrow morning, signs will get posted out there for citizens to see exactly where the parcel's at. There'll be a phone number on there that goes to my office, and we'll get anybody that's interested included in that an informational packet, which we have assembled generally. I'll come back to this a little bit, but in this informational packet, it's got county assessor information, zoning information, water, sewer lines, general purchase agreement, and somewhat of a layout of how this is going to unfold. Kind of considering an auction with Gary Brett Schneider around the December timeframe, and with a purchase agreement to come back to you elected officials if you decide to do this shortly thereafter that for approval. There is, when you sell city property, a remonstrance period that we have to go through in accordance with state statute that requires notification to the citizens. There's no way around that. We typically say it takes between 45 and 90 days to get all this I's dotted and T's crossed. Hopefully to have that all done by early spring, late summer, early spring, so that whoever buys the parcel can potentially get a building in the ground, get some foundations in the ground when the frost comes out. The buyer would need to get building permits just like any other property or parcel or project. The information packet is not quite done yet, and this is where I would like your input. Back in 2000, approximately 15 and 16, we had sale of 2 parcels, one of which, I won't name the location, but city sold it, full bundle of rights, and today still that property sits vacant. Around that very same time, in the 600 block of North Oak Street, there was another city-owned parcel that we sold, and we had some time constraints in that purchase agreement. Or actually, there's an MOU that went along with the purchase agreement that said X amount of the parcels have to be built out within Y amount of time. And it was reasonable. We got everything done. Buildings in the ground. People have been living there. Citizens have been living there since then. So with that in mind, and knowing that we're in somewhat of a housing shortage, we would like to consider having some sort of reasonable stipulations in the purchase agreement so that it doesn't necessarily get purchased and sat on. If that makes sense. Is there any feedback that you would have for that?
Lyle, I don't necessarily have any feedback from the time of the sale to the time of development. Would this be a candidate? Would this property be a candidate to invest in the land bank?
That is a great question, and that's going to trail right into what I'm going to talk about. No, that's totally fine. It's a wonderful question. What we generally talked about as far as time constraints was a reasonable amount of time. We don't want to crack the whip on somebody and make sure this is hurry up and done quick. We want it to be a smooth and methodical process. And I think we generally talked about a 1-year time frame to get building permits and 2 years before a certificate of occupancy, which I would think would seem reasonable. But I'm open to suggestions, especially from some of you builders and real estate folks in here, to have something that can be out of the ground in that time frame. Any other thoughts before I continue on with that?
Did you list a value on that?
We did not. Actually, the county has it still depicted as a city. Can you go back to that and pull up the value that's depicted there? Since it's a city property, it doesn't have the county assessed value on there.
The lot's assessed at 14,000, 15,000?
In 2018.
Okay.
How much do we have in the lot?
What's that?
How much do we have in the lot? How much do we?
Oof. That's a good question. I don't want to say with 100% certainty, unless we can look that up quick, but I would venture to say it's a whole bunch of staff time to get the title cleaned off, and then typically we factor $10,000 to $20,000 for demolition of the property. So worst case scenario, probably 20 to 25,000 when you factor in staff time, 20 to 30,000. That's strictly a number out of the air from over 10 years ago. Other questions before I go on?
So what's the reasoning behind trying to push, so if it does sell, that has to move faster?
Say the question one more.
Well, you're saying you want to beef it, so if you do sell a lot, then the construction immense within 1 year, is that what you're saying?
Have the building permits within 1 year and the project complete a certificate of occupancy within 2 years.
That changes who you market to then,
It does,
because now you're marketing to a builder or developer.
right. Or a property owner that's ready to go right.
Well, if you're trying to do affordable housing, what's going to happen if an individual wants to buy it and this is in their price range? They can buy this, work on paying it off, and then, because if they're going to put a $200,000 house on a $20,000, if they can even do that, like anything you do anymore is not affordable, and then you've got interest rates where they're at. So if I was a young buyer in town looking to do a constructive process, I would buy that lot, pay it off, get my 20% and use my lot as equity to get my construction loan, which is going to take longer than a year. So, I mean, by essentially changing what we're doing, we're changing the market to buy an affordable lot in town.
You're exactly right. But when you put restrictions on something that can be done, you're going to take some folks out of the
Take a
pool.
bunch of folks out of it, and then it's just going to the guy who's got money right now and can go. So I don't know, this is an opportunity for somebody to get into and build their own home someday, because there's no lots that are that affordable.
Yep.
You know, or what this would sell for if it went to auction or whatnot, and say it went for 20, 25,000, that's a bargain in Norfolk now for a lot. So I'm a little hesitant to say, let's put a stipulation on what has to be there, because then the only people buying it are the ones who can afford it.
Sure. Let's
I mean,
come back.
I'm not saying that, but you could potentially go in and get a loan to buy this, put $2,000 down, and get your loan, and then pay that off. And then you could use that as equity to build your home. I don't know, I'm not in favor of closing doors
Okay.
on people that have an opportunity to buy a lot.
It's good input. And let's keep talking about it. We'll come back and we come back to that exact topic. Any other thoughts before we continue on? Let's see here. As far as advertising, with that data sheet that we have assembled, we want to send it to the folks that we typically do. The chamber, the builders association, the board of realtors. We have a list of contact of citizens that have called and said, hey, if city property comes up for sale, please let me know. So I don't know, there's probably 20, maybe 30 citizens that are on that list. Gary Breschneider will have some contacts. I'd like to have Nick send out an article, and hopefully the media will pick that up, perhaps, and spread the news. The sale of which, if elected officials are still on board, and this is where land bank comes into play. The sale of this property, if you go forward with this, as we've talked about in the subcommittee meetings in the past, long time past, could go, we would encourage it to go towards the land bank takeoff. The land bank is really what I want the elected officials and the citizens to learn about and to consider. Danny's been spearheading this process. Val has had significant involvement with it as well. Gary's going to be the executive director of it. For years, many years, we've talked about as staff and elected officials, the dilapidated properties, some of the dilapidated properties, and what we can do to clean up those properties throughout the community. Some of them are upside down, some of them have absentee property owners, or they're ones that private investors don't want to touch because the parcel's worth X amount, and to take the house down, to raise the property is X plus $5,000. So they just sit there. The land bank can potentially acquire those properties, clean them off, clean the sites off, clean the title off, get housing and buildings back on there and get them back into the market, but it needs funding. It needs funding to get this thing off the ground. This sale, this property, as well as what was depicted in the budget, $50,000 from ARPA, would be that seed money to bring this land bank off the ground. Land bank has been a long time in the process. We're talking years and many, many hours of staff time. It's getting ready to take flight, and probably in December here, hopefully, we'll see some more names and committee members come together for what we are hoping to be a first land bank meeting in January, to flip over some of these properties, make them productive back in the community again. The potential for this land bank to do great things is huge, not just for Norfolk, but for the region. And the first step, not the first steps, these next steps would be the sale of this property. So with that being said, I'd like to come back to your question. Do we value the full bundle of rights sale of the property to potentially have happen like we had in the past, where it sits there with no property on it to maybe make a little more money, or to make more money on the sale during the auction? Or do we restrict who could potentially buy it, get a property in the ground right away, and get that money into the bank, into the land bank, to start flipping other properties? And I don't, it doesn't matter to me necessarily how you want to go about it. We just want to try and do what you as a council want us to do.
What's by restricting the sale, how does that hurt the land bank?
If we put more constraints on who can buy the property and build on it, you're right, you're going to take some more people out of
Right.
the buying pool. And just by the numbers of the situation, if you lower the numbers, the probability of a higher purchase rate, higher purchase amount goes down as well. And as such, less money into the land bank. Does that make sense? If not, that's totally fine. You can disagree.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that, I guess.
So you think whether there's no restrictions or a 2-year restriction, we'll get the same buyers?
Well, we've got, so it's, okay, what are you thinking it's gonna sell for? You think with restrictions, it's gonna go for more money?
No,
Right.
I don't.
Right.
I think more restrictions will bring less money. But it'll get a property in the ground sooner, which will get property taxes back on the dole sooner.
I don't know, you're talking potentially a house that's gonna appraise out for $250,000. I mean, overall, I don't know what the restrictions really do, except for disqualify different buyers in the community. But I agree with you that it could be seed money for the land bank.
Yeah, that's,
I don't know, I'm not,
I would maybe counter that a little bit. The 1 year, 2 year, it worked well on Oak Street, right?
it was great. There was no issues with it at all. And I think what I would like the citizens to know, and anybody that's watching at home, there's almost this fear, perhaps, of coming and buy from the city. These government auctions, there's not anything special. There's nothing hidden. It's going to be an auction, just like any other auction. The stigma that comes along from buying from the government, I wish would go away, but it seems to be there. But that was a perfect example of getting 5 structures in the ground in a structured, timely
In
manner.
a short time frame.
Yep,
but that was 5 lots right next to each other.
that's right.
It was.
So that was gonna be a developer anyway. This is a single lot.
I agree, but if the lot sells for, say, $40,000, it's gonna have a tax roll of $40,000 until something gets built on it, which, potentially, even if a neighbor bought it, he may never build on it. I think you have a minimum of a $300,000 home that probably goes up. I think, construction cost, probably $260 a square foot, if you will, roughly. I mean, it's a 1,000 square foot house. You're probably looking at a 300,000 plus the lot. You're between 3 and 3.5, and that's on the tax rolls in 2 years. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know if the 1 year, 2 years is the right answer, but I'm not so sure it should come with some kind of action with it.
Well, you could say 5 years. 5 years would give that person the time, pay off your loan, use the money use the lot as equity against the loan for your construction loan. Essentially, this is how I built my first house. I bought a cheap lot out in City, Nebraska, and then paid the lot off, and then used the lot for my construction loan. And that's how I got into my very first home. That's why I'm but I wouldn't have had that opportunity if they would have said, Shane, you gotta build this thing within such amount of time, because I just had enough money to put a down payment on a lot and make payments on it, you see. So, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that you're taking that opportunity away when there are hardly any lots in this community that would sell for that cheap, unless you bought an old home and demoed it, and that gets scary for people because they're worried about demolition costs and then abatement
Yep.
on that, you know, so then all of a sudden you're into a house for a lot more than the 25,000 you gave for it, just tearing it out of there. So I think you've got a vacant lot, you've got an opportunity for buyers that, of anybody in the community would have an opportunity to buy, and I think a restriction.
You think that up to 2-year restrictions, that in essence effectively becomes a restriction from what?
Well,
push
first of
it
all,
a lot.
I honestly don't believe in any restriction. I think you sell it and you just let the person who buys it have adequate time to do what they need to do. But if we want to be fair and compromise, I'm willing to compromise, but not 2 years. I'd go up to 5. That would be a decent amount of time to make your payment, pay it down, and get your construction loan. And then also, you're looking at a time right now where interest rates are historically high.
Yep.
So the chance of somebody starting a project on this could be out further yet, you know, when they want, because they're talking about interest rates potentially coming down in the second quarter of 2024. I know this last past year, or this last past Fed meeting, they did not take up interest rates, and conventional loans came down just a little bit on a 30-year, but not enough to get our market going again.
And I could go along, I mean, with that idea of the 5-year, at least it puts an end date on it. If it takes them 5 years, great. If they want to build in 1 and 2 years, so be it. But after 5 years, this does have some type of structure on it.
Well, yeah, and after 5 years, if they haven't started something, they're probably not.
Right.
I got a couple comments or thoughts on it. I think on one side, what you're talking about is buying a piece of land, and maybe that goes hopefully towards your 20% if you needed it, so you get away from PMI, right? Your insurance that obviously isn't necessarily cheap. And you're probably looking at having to have 20% down anyway. So I get it with the no restrictions. But on the other hand, whether it's 2 years or 5 years, what are your teeth if somebody doesn't build? What's the consequences and what's the reasoning behind it?
That's a good question as well, because if we want to incentivize that, there better be something to incentivize it with. What we did on the Oak Street property was for every month it wasn't completed, it was something like 1 or 2% of the cost of the purchase as a fee to incentivize the sale. Now, it wasn't an issue because it wasn't withheld, but it would have to be something like that where we said, and 12% is a nice round number, 12% per year, so 1% per month. If not built on, with a certificate of occupancy issued out, it's billed back to the owner. If you have other recommendations, I'm all ears. But
Let me throw this out there. I think that's in a way, I think that's just a heavy hand, and I don't know that we as a city government should even do that. So I'm leaning more towards sell it, and it is what it is. If anything, it's on the tax rolls no matter what, and right now it's not.
It's on the tax rolls as vacant property, so it's
Under the city's ownership,
under the
so
city's
it's,
ownership for nothing. So
right.
The property alone would be, I don't know, a few $100s without the improvement.
Right. I don't know.
It's a tough one, and
More than likely, it's going
in
to get
some
bought
ways
by
it-
somebody who's going to be able to start right away. But if you do have a restriction again, you just take away that many people that could look at this lot.
yeah, and the trade-off, like I said, being the other one that we sold that still sits vacant and is $300 in property taxes since 2015.
Regardless, I don't think the change is really going to affect what happens here necessarily. I think we need to make a decision one way or another. Like you want to get this moving, right?
Yep,
and the land bank formation is pending.
Right. Knowing that there's a remonstrance period that goes along with this, it takes times for the transaction of real estate to take place. Getting this ball rolling to coincide with the rest of the land bank stuff, because right now the iron is hot to strike. And hopefully somebody does pick it up and wants to build on it in the spring, and we can get through this process so they're ready to roll.
When you mentioned this would be going to auction, are you talking a silent auction, are you talking a live auction?
It'd be a live auction. So we've done the sealed
Just
bid
vote.
deals in the past.
Okay.
And they have been
Somebody call for a
okay.
vote.
We've had some
Okay.
people come, somewhat of I think it's an intimidation thing, perhaps. Hasn't been a whole lot of bidders, but also it was a different market then. This is a tighter market. And we've talked about different ways to sell this, and we want to give an auction style a shot at it again. with Gary Brett Schneider doing it. What we talked about was having the auction, taking a 5-minute break, going back so that people can call their lending institutions or whoever, and then come back with the second round of it right after that.
I guess I'm kind of leaning the way that Corey and Shane are about not putting restrictions on it, because if you're putting a restriction on it to put a new home on it, you're kind of taking the neighbor that would be adjacent to this property out of the equation if you're making them put a house on it, and maybe they just want a bigger yard. So I guess my feeling is that maybe just advertise it and sell it without the restriction, because
Was part of the motivation for that to increase the housing options? I mean, we
Yes.
could increase the affordable housing options,
Because
right?
we constantly hear about the
Yes.
affordability of housing, and the sale of this property, the land bank, and everything else is taking place are not necessarily going to fix the problem, but this is going to help with it just a little bit. And I think the money into the land bank is going to help a significant amount, but it's not going to be like that. It's going to take time for that to take off, slowly and methodically. So the success of this will hopefully feed into the land bank, which will hopefully feed into community betterment. And I absolutely appreciate everybody's input in this, and we can go about it however we want to do it.
Well, obviously, you guys wrote this up with some intentions. Is there a staff recommendation on this? I mean, it is what it, like.
Sure. The recommendation from what we talked about previously, and feel free to speak up if anybody else thinks differently, is to encourage the structure of a building on there for helping with the housing
For affordable
situation.
housing. Okay.
However, we're the staff and you're the elected officials, and we want to do what you want us to.
I got one question. If we're talking about affordable housing, or we're talking about getting more houses in our community, Val, maybe this question is more directed towards you, but is there a chance that a developer could put a townhouse or a duplex on this property?
Currently, it's R1 zoned, but you will see tomorrow morning at Planning Commission and then the next council meeting, some code amendment proposals that would allow R1 zoning to be permitted to be 1 and 2 family. So if that amendment goes through and somebody buys this, then yes, you could potentially put a duplex on here.
I don't think they could fit one. You got two 25-foot setbacks and a rear setback and a side setback. It'd be pretty small to try to fit. You'd have to go up. You have to go up. Affordable, right? You're looking at
I think it
R1.
was Shane, I think that was a 2-story on there that,
Was it? Well, yeah, that's what I mean. You have to go up.
It was.
It's a
yeah.
great
Actually,
lot for a split foyer.
If you go to Google Streets, can you go to Google Streets there and scroll back to 2015 or so, 14?
Hey, it's got a sidewalk.
Yeah, it does have a sidewalk.
I don't know why it's.
That's Google Earth, if you go to Google Streets, I think.
Oh,
So any other, I guess the temperature I'm feeling is to not put a time constraint on there, knowing that will have the potential
Yeah.
for a buyer to sit on.
do I call for the vote or does Brittany have to do that? Brianna? Brianna? Can we just vote on this?
Yeah, the motion here is just to advertise, so
Right.
some of the details we can work out later. This is just,
This is advertising
Drawing
for the
attention
sale.
to it.
Yeah.
I'll offer for consideration of approval to staff to
We've got,
advertise.
we've got the motion,
Oh, you
so,
got the motion.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Second then?
yeah.
Got
If
that?
there's nothing else, we can go right to a vote.
Let's do that.
If we're done. Okay, please vote.
Sell it.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Thank you, Lyle. Item 29, would look for a motion to consider ordinance number 5853, authorizing issuance of public safety tax anticipation bonds in the principal amount not to exceed $1,270,000.
I'll offer for consideration of ordinance number 5853.
Motion second, and Randy, once again, could you give us some background on this, please?
Yes, this ordinance authorizes the public safety tax anticipation bonds for purchase of CAD, RMS, police software, in-car video replacement, body cameras, fire station, police station, roof replacements, and outdoor warning sirens. bond issue is expected to be $1,265,000. The ordinance authorizes a maximum issue size of up to $1,270,000 and a maximum true interest cost of 6.5%. The ordinance provides for the final interest rate and true interest cost and aggregate principal amount to be determined in a written designation to be signed by the mayor and myself. This is a 14-year bond issue with a 5-year call provision. We take the average maturity of the items being purchased and or the average expected life, and that's what we put for the maturity on these bonds. That's how we got the 14 years. This has been the city's standard method of acquiring public safety or police and fire capital items that are in the CIP. If you look at the capital improvement program, you'll see that most years we have public safety tax anticipation bond issues in the capital improvement program. There are some things that are in the CIP that aren't bought with public safety tax anticipation bonds, police or fire items. For instance, we often split cost with the rural fire district when we have particularly large items, or they pay for items that are primarily used for the rural fire district. Some items qualify for wireless 911 funds. Some items are too large to fit within the 5 cents levy limit the state places on public safety tax. So we cannot have more than a 5-cent levy for public safety taxes, and the debt service that's paid from that levy can exceed 90% of the amount of public safety tax authorized. So there's various constraints and statutes on use of public safety tax anticipation bonds and how those work, but they're a good tool for financing public safety purchases. And as I said, if you look in the CIP, except for those few items that I mentioned, items that we get with rural fire district, wireless 911 funds, you'll normally see those are bought with public safety tax anticipation bonds. This particular bond issue was driven by getting towards the end of the year, and we've got, I think it's about 1.8 million in the budget for public safety tax anticipation bonds this year. But we've got some room, about $1,270,000 of room in our $5 million annual arbitrage rebate exception. That's an IRS rule that says if you issue less than $5 million of bonds in a particular year, you get an arbitrage on that bond and you don't have to pay it back. We haven't been able to earn arbitrage for a while. In other words, we're going to be able to invest any unspent bond proceeds until we get them spent and earn more on it than what we're paying on bond issue. That hasn't been the case for a while, but interest rate markets have been taking some fairly dramatic changes as the Fed tried to ramp up interest rates to tamp the economy down. And we now can earn arbitrage rebate on this particular issue. I think we could, well, we won't know what the interest rates are for probably a week or 10 days. I expect we'll be able to earn maybe 0.5% of arbitrage on this, and we'll be able to keep that. Another nice thing about staying below the $5 million arbitrage rebate limit is you don't have to hire an arbitrage rebate consultant to prove to the IRS that you didn't earn arbitrage. Bond counsel pretty much wants somebody with expertise in that area because it is a rather complicated section of IRS code to come in and perform that calculation, even if it's fairly obvious that you are not going to earn arbitrage. So In this case, I think we actually will earn arbitrage, but we won't have to do the arbitrage rebate report, and those cost about $2,500 per bond issue on average. And you have to do that whether you run any arbitrage or not. And that's what's driving this timing of this particular issue. We want to take advantage and get up to our $5 million maximum this year. And answer any other questions you might have. It's a fairly long explanation of a relatively short paragraph in the staff memo, but I want to go into a little more detail as to why we're issuing these bonds and why we're issuing them now and what we're using them for in our history with public safety tax anticipation bonds.
Randy, you said this is time sensitive, so does this have to be approved tonight?
Doesn't have to be approved tonight, but if you wait until the next meeting, we could probably still close this calendar year, but those arbitrage rebate exceptions are not on a fiscal year basis, but a calendar year basis. Usually takes 30 days after you approve the bond issue to actually get the bonds issued, because we want to wait until the remonstrance periods ran before we actually issue the bonds. So probably could wait another council meeting, but it'd be getting tight.
I guess was this projected in our budget the way we approved it, or is this not?
I didn't understand that, Corey. Can you repeat?
Was this projected in our regular budget of?
Yes.
So this
it's
is
like
been
at
a budget
1.7 or 1.8 million in our budget, and we're issuing a piece of it now that keeps us under that $5 million arbitrage rebate limit.
So we had up to 1.7. This is 1.27.
Yes,
right? Okay.
by 1 million.
And the list of projects this would pay for, there's outdoor warning sirens, an ambulance, in-car cameras for police, body cameras, roof replacements. Is that correct? Did I miss
Yes.
anything?
And we normally slice and dice these bond issues to, if we have a particular size bond issue in the budget, in a case like this where we've got a particular reason of doing it, we may issue it before that, and then we might have another small issue in the latter part of this fiscal year, or we may just wait. We've got other items in CIP in the next fiscal year and include them with that. Just depending on how the markets are looking, and there's something like this arbitrage rebate exemption that we can take advantage of, we may want to do that.
These are items that our fire and police divisions have anticipated, put in within CIP, and are essentially counting on for operations in the next year. Is that accurate?
This money, if we don't issue bonds to pay for it, we'll have to pay for it out of some other revenue source. So that you would have to draw down fund balance or cut some other expenditures. And this was anticipated being done at budget time out of public safety tax anticipation bonds.
Okay, thank you, Andy.
And we don't have any, we shouldn't have any carrying cost with this. Our carrying cost will be negative. We'll be making money on this one instead of actually having negative carrying or positive carrying cost. We'll make more on unspent bond proceeds than what we're paying.
I thought one of the, did you mention civil defense sirens in here as well? That we paid for civil defense sirens, right? For tornado sirens in this?
What was that, Corey?
Civil defense sirens are tornado sirens that blow on Tuesday mornings. That was part of the bond issuance here, right?
Yes, 120,000 for the morning sirens this year.
I guess maybe I recall this, but didn't we get grant for like 3 or 4 of civil defense sirens through the state?
Yes, we got a grant for a portion of those.
Mayor and Council, yes, that's correct. We have had 12 warning sirens, so this last round, or the first round, I should say, we replaced the two oldest, so we replaced one at Eastern Heights, one on Bonita Drive, and then we added one out at the West Water Treatment on West 275 out there. That particular round qualified for some federal grant funds that it actually ended up paying for roughly 90% of those 3 sirens. And then we had a 10% contribution. Those are rough numbers. Those dollars are not available every round. There has to be some, unfortunately, some sort of natural disaster that sometimes opens up and engages those funds. We apply for those every year. Our Region 11 Emergency Manager, Bobby, does that. It doesn't look like the second round, this next 3, there wasn't any funding available as far as grants, but we're still going to continue to apply for them. So we show them in the CIP 3 at a time until all the sirens are done, hoping that even though we budgeted roughly $30,000 to $40,000 per siren, hoping that we can get grant funds each session to buy that down. But it's not a guarantee by any stretch of the imagination. So. Does that answer your question? Okay.
All right. Any other discussion?
The funding source you were talking for paying off these bonds, where's that funding source attached to?
Where does the money come from
Yeah.
for this property tax?
Property tax, okay. You had mentioned something about the advantage you can take with that. Earlier you said if you could take advantage of with your bonding, you can take advantage of it.
The $5 million arbitrage rebate limit
Yeah.
will come right under that if we issue these bonds. We'll take full advantage of that this year.
Okay.
Mayor and Council, I just want to make a comment. I think that this is a practice the city's had to fund these kinds of projects for a long time. Randy, I don't know how long. I mean, maybe you can
Yeah,
speak
I'm
to
not sure
how
long
long
either.
it's been.
Been decades, probably.
And so if there's a shift and a change in how we do this going forward, I think that discussion is a larger discussion that probably needs to happen as an overall city budget discussion that would take place at budget time as well. So I guess I just wanted to make that point that this is not something that's been unusual that the city's been doing for a long time.
Yeah, you can look back at CIPs and you'll see that.
I guess the one part that is kind of hanging over this is the fact that we're talking about roof replacement on the police station, and we've talked about, possibly building a new police or remodeling the police station. So that's where I think there's, I feel like we need some time to digest what we're trying to do here and get some answers out there. And I would move to table this if I can have more discussion, more time to think about what we're trying to accomplish here. I understand what you're saying, but there are some legitimate questions about this. And I mean, if you want to vent them all right now, we can, but.
I think Chief's ready to address those questions about the roof if we want to decide now. I mean, there comes a point where we have to make a decision on this stuff relative to the timelines that Randy has to meet. And again, I would add these were budgeted items that our public safety divisions are more or less counting on to do their jobs in the next year. It's pretty important.
I think everybody's not saying that.
Mayor and Council, just to address the question about the police station roof. This brings a great opportunity, as we've discussed, trying to expand the police department and how that ties into that. We started doing our space needs assessment in 2020, and our roof replacement was in the 2021 CIP. The roofs that are on the police station and the fire station were installed in 2008 with a 15-year warranty, which expires in 2023. I don't know which month. For the last several years, the police station has been having significant problems with leaks in our roof. We've had the manufacturer to our place multiple times trying to find leaks, as recently as last week. Spent a couple hours there and they didn't find the leaks. The problem with the flat roof comes through the perforation, hits a beam, could travel either direction before it ever comes through. Unfortunately, when we had the heavy rain this last time around, we developed a new leak in our brand new dispatch center, and we had plastic covering our dispatch consoles and buckets to catch the water. We couldn't find that leak. So every time we have a rain, we're anticipating these problems. As we were originally looking at doing our roof in 2021, we talked about it as a staff, and we said, well, let's try to put it off, because if the expansion
happens,
Right.
it would make sense to do that as part of that back then. Of course, that didn't come through, that didn't materialize. Now we're at a position where we can't wait any longer. We're still hoping to do the expansion and working on that at that time. But we literally have buckets in multiple locations catching rainwater. So the police station is one of those, and Tim can speak to, I don't know what he's had for problems, but we need to do something or we're gonna end up having more damage inside of our structure. So, if that answers your question.
Yeah.
How old's that roof?
I'm
Chief?
sorry?
How old is the roof?
2008 is when they were put
2000
on.
Okay.
And
And if an expansion were to happen
Yes.
sometime near future, hopefully, would that impact what's already been done? I mean, the expansion, it's not like you would be replacing the roof due
Correct.
to an expansion project.
We've talked
correct?
to the architects about that, and that's part of their expected plan, where the roof that we replace would remain. It wouldn't have to be redone. You know, we don't want to waste money in the process.
Sure.
Any other questions on that?
What's the cost of that roof done? Estimate.
Our estimate for the PD is $210,000. That's based on we checked and they said figure about $20 a square foot based on the size of the roof. Fire Chief Rogge is in the process of trying to get actual bids to get an accurate number. I don't believe we've received those bids yet, but he's actively trying to get hard bids. And the fire station was $375, I think, for the fire station. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion?
Would anybody be objecting to digging in this a little bit deeper? I know I'm not trying to put public safety off to the side, but digging this a little bit deeper till next meeting and tabling it?
I'd like to see a vote tonight on this personally, but,
Okay.
you know.
Okay. That said, please vote.
Well, you haven't asked.
Public, okay. Yep.
Brad Brooks, 2204 Highland Drive in Norfolk. Okay, I'm relatively sure that I know this answer, but I'm gonna ask you, Randy. Is there any way that we can exceed that 5% so that we can, this is public safety bonds?
We can issue more than 5 million. We won't qualify for the arbitrage rebate exemption, which I expect we may earn $5,000 or $6,000 in interest that we would have to pay back to the IRS if we don't qualify for that exemption. So we can issue as much bonds as we want. We're not limited because of that 5 million. It's just that any interest income we earn that's more than the interest expense we pay then has to be paid back to the IRS. The IRS doesn't like, in general, they don't like people issuing tax-exempt debt, taking the money and investing it at higher proceeds. They try to discourage that, and that's why there's that arbitrage requirement that you got to pay anything you earn over and above the bond interest rate to the IRS, unless you're a small issuer under $5 million in a year.
So what you're basically saying in layman's language, we really can't do this to pay for the improvements to the police station without suffering a penalty.
The problem we got with using public safety tax anticipation bonds to pay for the expansion of the police station is we have that 5-cent limit. Maybe that's what you were asking earlier, and I didn't understand your question. We got that 5-cent limit in state statutes. We cannot have debt service on public safety tax anticipation bonds that exceeds 90% of that, and the cost of the police station expansion will not fit in to that 5 cents.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna ask, once again, I asked about 6 weeks ago. I feel we need a task force formed to figure out how we can make these needed improvements to the police station. I know that we didn't work evidently hard enough to get the bond issue passed, but all these other things, somebody has figured out a way to deal with some of the streets and other things. But we've still got this issue out there with the police station. It needs to be addressed, so.
Thank you, Brad. I can say internally that that very idea has been discussed, and don't be surprised if you get a call sometime soon.
Okay.
Serve on that task force.
I'm waiting.
All right.
I would say that 2 councilmen have both asked to table this. I think it deserves a vote, whether we should table it or not. I mean, you got 2 of them that's asked. We're just gonna keep saying, well,
We would need a formal motion to table, and then that would stop all discussion.
I said it, then I'll make a formal motion for a table till next meeting on the, for further discussion.
Second that.
Motion second to table, please vote.
Voting in the affirmative, Arns, Webb, Jeff, Norton, Boston, Hildebrand. Voting in opposition, Granquist and McCarthy. Motion to table ordinance number 5853 carries.
Okay, item 30, would look for a motion to consider ordinance number 5854 to update current city speed limits to include community developments and annexations.
I'll offer for consideration of ordinance number 5854.
Second.
Motion second. For some background on this, we'll hear from Chief Miller.
Mayor and council, as you look at this speed limit ordinance change, there's a lot of red. And to give you a little bit of background, the reason that this materialized is, a couple of years back, we did our annexations. And when we did those annexations, our speed limits didn't extend into those areas. So that started the conversations looking at where do we need to extend. Now, most of these changes are due to those annexations. Anything that occurred on a state highway, we don't have the ability to change those speed limits. Those are set by the state, so we utilize those. In this, we didn't make any major changes to any of our speed limits that are existing, with the exception of 37th Street. We had a lot of discussion and questions about 37 having a varying speed limit from north to south, so we made that 40 miles an hour consistent from north city limits to south city limits. And a big part of this is, without this ordinance in place, the city attorney can't prosecute speed limits unless there's an ordinance. We have normally send all of our speed limit, or our speed citations, to the city attorney. And without this in place, if it occurred in the annexed area without the speed limit, then that speed citation would have to go to the county for prosecution, because it's a state statute. So when we pick these numbers, they are either set by the state, already part of the state statutes, or what we reviewed as being an appropriate speed limit. After the police department went through these, we went through and wrote the first draft. We gave it to the city attorney, I'm sorry, the city engineer. Steve Ramus reviewed it, and he passed it around his staff, and they looked at it with their criteria, sent it back to us, and then we put together the final ordinance. So this has been a lengthy process to get to this point without any significant changes other than including the annexed areas that we have, and then we reviewed everything that was there. I anticipate, down the road, like there always is, we'll get questions, and we'll have to continue to review and look at speed limits along the way. That's part of the normal process, but this will get us up to a housekeeping thing to get us current with our current annexed areas. So any one of these there could be a full discussion on, so I mean, if you guys have specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or Steve Ramus can chime in, because we've both been very involved with this process.
I got one question because I was asked on 37th, and I'm not necessarily positive what it was south of 275 compared to north of 275, but it looks like now it's 40 for the entire stretch. Does that sound right?
Yes, it was 37th from Norfolk Avenue, north was 45, and to the south was 40. It looks like South Salem, no,
I think it's like 35 or
30,
something. Does
maybe
that
it was
sound right?
35. I'm not even gonna say, there was 45 and there was 40 and there was a variety of speed limits.
Yeah, I know there was a difference. And so I guess the question more is, well, one more. Benjamin, 27th Street to the west is 45. It's like the third one down on the list
Yeah.
here, right?
That one was
didn't
not
change.
changed.
So that, let's say that's basically more in the city with more residential compared to 37th that has very little residential. Just doesn't make sense to me that it goes down to 40. I think 37th Street should be no different and stay at 45 for the entire stretch. But that's the only change I see that come to mind for me.
I'd agree with you on that one. It gets kind of confusing when you get past the roundabout.
And it's fine being 45 out there. I don't know, maybe it's a little fast going past the fire station, I'm not sure. Or the huge dip or jump you take because of the street by the fire station, but 45 there on Benjamin, I guess I'm fine with that, but 37th Street, I think the whole thing should be 45 mile an hour. Right, that's south.
You say 37 should be 45?
Yeah, I believe so. It should be increased to 45. I mean, we're talking out there by Dinkle and south.
Well, the north side was 45 and we're lowering it to 40 because we're getting
Yeah.
complaints on speed on the north side of it. So that's why we picked 40 as a balance between the two. No,
Really?
You've been going 45?
No, I'm surprised that there's
I
been
drive it at
complaints.
40.
I was surprised there's been complaints because I hear the complaints on the other side of it's only 40 out there where there's 2 or 3 commercial properties.
The only complaint I ever get is the one on going 45 on Benjamin past 25th to 37th. That bump you
That's
hit out
staying
there
at
and then
45.
what?
That's staying at 45.
Yeah,
according
that's
to this.
45.
if I ever had anybody call and complain about it, that's the one. That's the only time.
That one seems odd that it's that high.
But other than that,
Yeah, I would think 25th to 37th can be a consistent 35.
Or in 40.
I don't think nobody's going to go that though.
So now I'm on 37th, you're saying 35 and you're saying 45?
I was actually talking about.
Are you talking on Benjamin or
On Benjamin.
37? Yeah,
What,
We
we're
switched
talking
to
about
on
two
Benjamin.
things. Talking about two different things here.
I
I think you're
I'm-
talking about when you head south of the roundabout on 37th, out past the
The Bradford Business.
the Bradford Business Park. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that drops to like what, 40 or something now?
Yeah.
Or is
Well,
it
it's all gonna
35?
be 40.
And now he's saying it's all be 40.
What is it right now?
North.
35?
On 37th Street?
Yeah, right.
Roundabout south to Omaha Avenue.
I believe, I'm gonna look before I say it.
I thought it was 35.
I think it's 30.
I've caught myself moving way
Me
too
too.
fast on that
Me
road.
too. Right.
I mean, you didn't hear that, Chief.
Well, that south area wasn't in city limits before,
Right.
so it would have been.
But it's got a sign up that it
It's got a sign
state,
there.
that would have been a state established one, either 45 or 55. I don't know.
I was legal.
I know that stretch right there, you catch yourself moving, and then you see what you're supposed to be driving. So I think it might only be 35 right now.
I think the posted was 35, yeah.
And we're making it 40. And, any one of these can be a discussion.
Right.
My recommendation, if you're comfortable with it, is get the stuff in place for the annexations. And these conversations can continue. We've had these conversations with many of you already for different areas. And we're always willing to look at those and make those determinations. I'd ask that you look at the ones that are changed more than the ones that are staying the same, because we can always have those discussions, but we could spend hours talking about each street speed limit along the way, and if you want to, I'll take the time to do it. There's a lot here to look at, so.
That's why I brought up 37th Street, because it did change, and it was discussion, but I don't know, if it's 40, it's 40. We can try it. Seems low.
But like he said, we can.
Yep.
Did you have any input, Steve?
The only complaint I had was they were 37 specifically, was just the inconsistency and the feeling that the general areas north and south were pretty close in terms of development. So they just asked that it be consistent. They didn't specify a number.
I mean, does it have to be, can it be 45 on that one?
It'll be 40.
It'll be 40. It just feels like I catch myself speeding on that one.
On 36.
Now, you're going to catch me one of these days too, probably.
Maybe.
Stay in the office.
I will.
Now they're going to know, they're going to see a red truck and they go, oh, God, follow that guy.
There is, I mean, there's a point that there has been new development there, including some residential, with Fountain Point Assisted Living, and there's other business. I feel to a certain extent this is why we have capable staff in place to make these recommendations, and then, as Chief said, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily set in stone. We can have discussions to adjust if need be. So, for the good of moving things along, I would, unless there's any other discussion on this, I would encourage a vote if we're ready for it.
Yeah.
Okay, please vote.
Thank you.
Short title, please.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to amend section 24-110 of the official city code to include speed limits for recently annexed areas, providing this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and to provide for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance number 5854 carries on first reading.
I assume, Chief, you.
I would.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. I'd vote to, or motion to suspend the rules and pass on second and third, just so I don't get caught speeding.
Motion to suspend rules. Is there a second? Second. Motion second to suspend the rules and approve on second, third readings. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance number 5854 carries on second and third.
Item 31 would look for a motion to consider ordinance number 5855, amending the dates and times that permissible fireworks may be discharged and limiting the dates and times that permissible fireworks may be sold. Motion second. For some background on this, we'll hear from Andy Colvin, City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, this ordinance comes to you tonight after some discussions and some requests from elected officials to have this come forward. Once again, this did come before you about 2-3 years ago or so to basically take the current fireworks code and reduce it from 10 days to sell and discharge fireworks in city limits, take that down to 7 days. This ordinance does have a slight change. Originally, it was to be 2 p.m. That you could begin doing this, but it has been moved to noon in the current proposed draft for the hours. So again, this proposed draft, this ordinance does have fireworks sale and discharge from June 28th to July 3rd, with restrictions to noon to 11 p.m. And then on July 4th, there are no changes to those times. So I just want to offer this out to council for discussion. Remember, you can amend this to whatever you want. If there is a desire to change the days and not change hours, or vice versa, you can certainly do that on first reading to make those amendments as you see fit. Or of course, you can vote no on this entire ordinance in its entirety as well. So the choice is yours. But we wanted to bring this forward for discussion from council. This was a request from council members to have this. Now would be the time to discuss this and make changes. We do start getting the permits coming in towards the first of the year. So if there are going to be changes, I think our vendors in town would like to know that now, as opposed to making them later in the middle of the game. So with that, I'll hand it back to you if you have any questions or if you'd like additional background on this.
I got one quick one, I think. But I was on the subcommittee that recommended to bring to council with no changes. Was that not possible to do that?
The direction that staff had was to reach out to certain council members that had an interest in this to bring a draft forward based on some of those questions. And that's what you have here, which is very similar to the original draft that we did bring forward before.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and comment on this, is that, like it was said 2 or 3 years ago, this had got brought up, and then it kind of disappeared for a little bit. And I would just say is that I have had a number, and a good number, I'm talking 10, 12 citizens to speak on this, to reduce this. Until today, I had not heard the opposition to keep it the same. So I just wanted to bring that forward, Andy was right when he said this was council driven, but it was citizen driven. So I guess I would be listening to any opposition or in favor of from our council and on this.
I'll just follow up with you a little bit on that, Corey. I agree, council brought it forward, but I would certainly say it was community driven. We have been hashing this thing out for years on should it change, should it stay the same. Nobody ever wanted to, I guess, bring it to a vote, and I think that's what we're going to do tonight, get it out there. We've had a lot of public comment, both for and against it, and I think that it's just time to get it off our plate, time to get a vote done on it. I too probably have received more calls, phone calls, emails, conversations that have asked to have it reduced. But, you know, whether the 7 days, 8 days, noon to 11, you know, I think that's all up for debate. As it's written here, from 10 to 7 days. And changed from what, noon to 11 on the 3rd, or through the 3rd. Yeah, 8 to 11. I think looks, you know, fairly appropriate. I don't know if the morning is that important for people to buy or discharge them. We had a work session and didn't get a lot of feedback from that. So kind of curious tonight if people are interested in the morning hours on this particular topic.
There was a poll done by the Norfolk Daily News. I'm not sure how that came out, the latest one.
Looks like the majority, 50% said yes, they would like to change it according to this. Or
No,
that,
no.
which one's right?
That one was opposite.
That one's
Yeah,
off?
that's opposite, so,
Okay.
yeah, they printed a correction then. This is the one that was done last year. It sounds like there was a more current
That's what I
survey
thought, too.
done, but I didn't get anything from you. I wasn't sure.
Well, it was 57% were opposed to change.
The one from last year.
Right, last year, right.
And that was done when?
October of 22?
No, 21.
21? Okay.
I mean, in Ward 4, I've heard complete opposite of what you've heard in Ward 1. Completely opposite. Do not change it. We want 10 days. It's been overwhelmingly that way. So, I guess, you know, I'm glad we're putting it to a vote, you know, like Frank said. But like in Ward 4, it's been overwhelmingly keep it at 10 days. So I haven't really heard a whole lot in opposition of that.
I've gotten more phone calls in opposition to reduce it here lately. That was right up there with the chicken change or chicken ordinance. Our ordinance. It was a lot of folks have reached out to me in my short time on this council, and fireworks was one of the top drivers for reduction. And there were several folks that stood up during our last meeting and spoke spoke for the reduction. So and just like Corey mentioned, I've gotten a couple of emails as this is drawing closer and have been put in front of folks for keeping the hours. But right now, for me, that number the number that wants it reduced has certainly outweighed the folks that have want to keep it, and especially for a longer time.
I think the way this was presented tonight was to force compromise. Because initially if that was the direction we took, was to reach out to council members, what they were thinking on how they would change it. From the subcommittee, 'cause subcommittee decided no action to be taken and leave the policy the same. But then it was changed and brought to us tonight with these changes made. So by doing that, it's like either all or none. Right?
I think to be
it puts you in a
I think to be fair, Shane, as Corey Hildebrand said, there's been discussion on this, and it has been the will of certain council members to discuss a policy change and make a decision one way or another. I think that's what Councilman Arndt said, and I think that's why we're here tonight.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you, Josh, but the position it kind of puts you in is, that's where I'm coming from.
I'm with Shane on that. So I was on that subcommittee also. It's kind of crazy being in Ward 1 with the other Corey, and he's heard the opposite of me for the most part. I hear I would say almost 100%. There's been a couple, so maybe that's 98%, of leaving it the same, leaving it as it is. So it's weird, but it's totally the opposite of Corey has in the same exact ward. But again, on that subcommittee, we moved forward with no change, at least with the ones of us that were in that. So,
but
it is a tough decision. Last time I believe we tabled it because of that, and it's maybe that's why we're having that discussion right here. But it got tabled and just fell off the table because it never came forward again. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you that the comments I do hear, and maybe we're going to hear it out here, there's plenty of people stuck around to talk, probably in favor and opposition, right, of changes and not. We're going to hear it, and we're going to make a decision whether that's to table or vote in one way or another. It doesn't matter. But I think there's what I'm hearing from public is the consensus of it's for the veterans. We'll throw that one out right away, you know. I can tell you I've heard from more veterans that want fireworks and leave them alone than I have from many that have not. Now, I understand there's some that don't. I really do. And I understand there's some in the vet's home. I also understand we used to light fireworks at the vet's home for their enjoyment. We've had it both ways. So to take veterans as a whole and politicize them, I think is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Because it goes both ways. And where does it stand? I don't know. Maybe it's 50%. Maybe it's 75-25. I don't know. But to politicize it and say the veterans don't want it to go 10 days is ridiculous. Animals, same way. You know, how do we really know? You know, some have animal. I have an animal that, it's crazy. I have a lab that loves a shotgun but hates the fireworks. It's 10 days that he has to deal with it. I wake up at 3:30 in the morning, every day. Every day. Fireworks are going off till 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. It's 10 days I deal with it. And so do other shift workers or other people that wake up that early. You know, not everybody goes to work 8 to 5. So it's a tough decision is what I'm getting to. But to generalize animals or to generalize vets or any of those types of groups seems preposterous. There's no reason for it. Let's have a discussion, and if it changes, it changes. If it don't, it don't. So.
I had one gentleman talk to me, and he said, "You already changed it." So I was like, I don't remember that, but I guess we did. And he goes, "Yeah." And I brought it up in subcommittee, and was it 1971? They changed from 14 days to 10 days. So I thought two things. One was, I couldn't believe that guy, you know, obviously he remembered when it changed in 71, which I thought was impressive. But there was a change, I guess, but that was a long time ago. But this the same code has been in place for 55, 54 years, right? So now it must, I guess on that side of things, it must be a big enough discussion that it merits discussion tonight. You know what I'm saying? So there's enough people talking about it, but it's been something in place for years. So, and it affects everybody differently, because my kids were little, when I had 10 years ago when they were little, we lit fireworks all the time. Now that I've got 2 in college and 2 in high school, we don't light fireworks anymore. It's not a big deal. But then I had a friend stop me the other day and he said, please don't change it. I got grandkids now and we light fireworks. So I think it kind of goes within certain cycles of your life when it's annoying and when it's not annoying, So I think somebody had brought up too that the 10 days for some people is important because of split homes. They might have the kids on, right? I think Frank, you were talking, they might have the kids one weekend and then the father or mother gets the kids the next weekend. So the 10 days comes into play then. So I don't know. I don't know what's right or wrong, but it is, like you said, it's a tough decision too.
Yeah. I think it has warranted enough discussion that we owe it to the people who have contacted various elected officials to compel the discussion forward to making some kind of decision, to make that decision. So the options on the table are, of course, as they always are, vote on this, amend it, table. We've already tabled it once. That was 2 years ago. So I would respectively encourage, yes, let's let people who came here to voice their opinions talk and then make a decision one way or another. That said, we will take public comment on this. It's late in the night. I'm gonna say if we can keep it to 3 minutes to everybody, I think that's fair. So, good evening.
I'll keep it to 3 minutes. My name's Don Wisniewski. You all know I like to blow stuff up, so you expected to hear from me tonight. Seriously, I can't believe anybody's thinking about changing this thing. I want to know and I want to understand what the benefits of changing this is. There's not one of you guys that couldn't admit that you waited and waited all year long to buy those fireworks when the 4th of July came around, and $2 bought you quite a bit of stuff. Let's not take that away from anybody. Keep this thing going. As kids, this is what we want. Most of these stands are, number one, located in very good spots in areas of shopping areas and such like that. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them are run by nonprofit organizations. The one I help is the Home Builders Association. All of our proceeds go to scholarships out here to the college. So we support the building industries with the electrical departments, the HVAC, and the building construction department. A lot of the other groups are either cheerleading groups or whatever they may be, churches and such like that, that all of this money goes back into our community. It doesn't go away, it stays right here. And believe me, there's pretty good profits on fireworks. There is good money to be made out here. We talked in our group, the home builders, and we're willing to compromise a little bit. If you guys want to change the hours a little bit, 10 to 10 maybe, noon to 10, but don't take the days away. Those are important for us to make those monies and put it back into our community. That's what we came up with. My understanding is this was brought up, one of the things that brought this up this time was a lady that had a dog. And I understand that. I grew up with dogs. She also told me that the 4th of July was her favorite holiday. And if she knew her dog didn't like fireworks, she wouldn't have bought a dog. No dogs like fireworks, period. They've got to be put in the closet or do whatever you have to do, go on vacation, whatever it is. Dogs don't like fireworks. That's a fact. We celebrate 12 days of Christmas for the birth of Jesus Christ. We celebrate 10 days of the birth of the United States of America. Don't take that away. And we have laws on the books. Enforce them. If they're not supposed to be doing this stuff after 10 or 11 o'clock, enforce the laws. As a contractor, I was roofing a roof one year, and the police showed up. It was 110 in the shade, so we worked early mornings and late afternoons. It was going to rain one night. At 10 o'clock, the police showed up and made me get off the roof that I was trying to tar paper. I had to get off the roof. I was trying to protect somebody's home from getting rained on. I had to get off the roof because we have a noise ordinance, and my nail guns, were making too much noise in the neighborhood. I got off the roof. It rained that night. So you can only imagine the hassle we had off of that. But lastly, Don't take any more God and country away from our lives. Leave it alone. We celebrate this for a reason. That's all I got. And I field any questions if anybody has any.
I don't have one, but my last lab loved fireworks. This one hates them.
Some of them. Thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to comment?
Just wanted to comment, kind of going off of what was just kind of said. I think fireworks in our town are important. The 10 days, I was talking to my daughter, she's a little shy to come up here. Fireworks are a big thing to her and her friends. So if you think about kids in general that do enjoy the fireworks, is what she was just talking about. She's like, well, Mom, I like to do it on this day with these friends and this. I think it's a way to get the community involved and have those friendships continue to flourish. The other thing I do, I will be honest, okay, I have 5 kids. I have very young ones and then up to age 11. I wouldn't be opposed to a 10 o'clock during the weekdays. But again, kind of just reinforcing is making sure, like, and I know that the police have a lot to do, but just reinforcing, like, is there a way we can incentivize making sure that we're done by 10 a.m.? Does that mean our fines have to be higher? If you're past 10 p.m., make those fines enough where we can keep the 10 days and still just do whether it's a 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. And I don't know how that works with tonight's, just because it's already as an ordinance with 11 o'clock, but that's what I have.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hi, everyone. I need to sign in here. Yeah.
State your name for the record.
Eric Sanders. I'm a co-owner of Fly By Night Fireworks. I was just going to talk to you a little bit about the last decision that you guys, on the last meeting, that permitting kind of already started, or it's going to start in January. Well, as an owner-operator, we have to purchase our fireworks long before January. We have to purchase them. We've already purchased them for next year. So you go from 10 to 7, we're already at a loss. We've already lost money. We're not going to sell those. We cut our days down. What are we going to do with that? Just store them. So that's one big thing. The other one was we had a Daily News poll. It was one of the largest polls according to Jay, that editor, Reiner, and it was to move it from 10 days to 7 days, with 551 responses, 57% to 43%. And then we had another one in July of this year that basically had a snapshot of something that was perfect, but the last day of the vote. 38.1 was 10 days. 19.5% was 7 days. 25.1% was 3 days. 10% was 4th of July only. 7%. So I guess with this, I'm asking that, and that was 503 at that time. I don't know how many people had 500 phone calls. You know, emails, texts, messages that people responded, but I think that's a pretty good response from the public to a poll, one of the highest ever. I'm not sure how you can ignore that. So I'm opposed to keeping it the same, 10 days.
Eric, what's your thoughts on the time frame that was discussed? Home builders brought up, what Don brought up about.
Yeah, that's, I'm okay with changing time, start
What-
time.
Thoughts
I'm
on
a shift
times?
guy, I'm a shift worker, I've been working rotating shift for 32 years, so I grew up with lawn mowing and his nailing, waking me up throughout the day, and my own fireworks or somebody else's fireworks waking me up as I'm trying to sleep, so I understand that.
Do you have times you're thinking of or have thought about if it changed?
I would say at least 10, 11 o'clock would be reasonable.
To start?
And start time?
What about finish?
We're at 10 o'clock. I think we should be 10 o'clock. 11 on the 3rd. I think we should keep that the same in the 4th.
So you're
So I
saying
think we're
10 o'clock and
I think
then
Mm-hmm.
we're 10 o'clock now though, aren't we?
it's 11, and then it's midnight on the 4th right now. So you're thinking
So-
10 and then
11 on the 3rd, midnight on the 4th.
what's your thought?
I'm not opposed to changing those kinds of times. But again, got laws on the books now. I think they need to enforce those. I know the police are busy, shorthanded, I'm sure. I understand that too. Maybe raising those fines like increase that. I'd also like to, we down in Columbus, we post everything on the outside of the stand, you know, what the basic ordinance is. It's supposed to be done at 10 or whatever it is. And we do it in both languages. So that might be something we should to help educate the public on it.
Eric, I got a question. You have stands in different communities.
Yeah.
Would you say that Norfolk is the longest running for days of selling?
No, they're all that we sell.
And their start times are, you said you had it posted, that's why I'm asking.
Oh, in Columbus, I don't know what this, I believe it's 10 o'clock. Not start time, but
So,
quote me on that.
so 10 to 10, noon to 10, I'm just
I don't
asking
know
you to
about it.
guess.
I don't know about a start.
Okay.
Just gonna have to wrap it. That's all
Right.
I got.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know,
Anyone else wishing to comment?
I was just gonna make one quick comment for the next, you could look at a 10 rule on this, 10 days, 10 a.m., 10 p.m. The nice thing is a compromise from that 11 p.m. during the week for a lot of people. I know it's a short window between probably 9 and 10 for the darkness, but 10, 10, 10 rule, possibly.
Evening.
Hi, my name's Cole Blum. I own Dam Fireworks along with my wife. I had a few points that I wanted to make to you guys. The proposed changes amount to a 30% reduction in the days allowed, but as of right now, those proposed hours is actually a 45% reduction in the time available for people to be able to shoot off their fireworks, and even greater for the amount of time we'd be able to sell them, because currently there is no restrictions between the start of the 25th and the end of the night on the 4th of July as to when we can sell fireworks. Now, in my experience, it's incredibly rare that we've sold any outside of the shooting hours anyways. It happened a few times in the evening after 11 o'clock where you just don't have to rush someone out the door then. It's happened maybe twice early morning sales where somebody really has things going on that they need to buy fireworks early. But like I said, it's very rare that we've ever had any sales really outside of the normal shooting hours. But with morning sales, we do have some customers that really like to shop in the morning. I don't think very many of them are rushing home to light off their fireworks. Normally, they just want to be able to shop when it's not as busy. We have a daycare that comes in and brings like 25 little kids in and just is complete chaos. And it's a lot of fun. And they always choose to do that in the morning so that it's not chaos with a ton of other people around. So I would ask that the buying is not nearly as restricted. The other point I wanted to make was we hire a lot of youth to work for us. A lot of the kids that work for us are extremely involved in summer activities, whether they're sports or other community activities, and they're really unable to find a job that fits into their schedule. And fireworks stands is a very short period of time that they can be able to get a little bit of job experience when they otherwise wouldn't be able to. We normally have 2 to 4 kids that it's their first job they've ever gotten to have. And if we reduce the hours and days by this much, my ability to employ people would probably be cut in about half from what it currently is. I also have seen how much people are willing to commute and drive to go get fireworks. And if we shorten the amount of days, I've seen how far people in Nebraska are willing to drive for bottle rockets for a long time. They no longer need to do that, but that doesn't mean that if all of the surrounding communities are starting to open on the 25th, they won't leave Norfolk to go to those communities to get their fireworks and then still light them off. Also, that someone else brought up, it will also be unavailable to ever have 2 weekends for fireworks. And so it may come down to a choice of, are they going to be able to celebrate with their family, or are they going to Big Bang Boom? And they then have to decide one or the other instead of being able to do both as they so oftentimes have. I think that's my points. If you have any questions at all, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you.
Just like Corey asked last, what would, I mean,
My concern with shortening the hours to 10 o'clock would only be because that time of year, it has barely gotten dark at 10 o'clock. So for a lot of people, that only allows 15 minutes maybe to be able to light off their stuff. Now, on weeknights, doesn't matter. Like, if it's more important that the rest of the community is able to have a peaceful weeknight, that seems reasonable. But it's very difficult to be able to even really start lighting off a lot of the fireworks till 10 o'clock. And just does not leave very much of a window. And as far as the morning goes, I don't know how much of an issue it is or not. I don't think there's a ton of stuff being lit off first thing in the morning. I don't think it would probably inconvenience that many people to have to wait a little while. However, sales, I know that there's a lot of people that do very much like to be able to shop in the morning and have things be a little bit quieter for them.
On this particular, what was presented today, Andy, does that have, does that limit sales too, for those timeframes? Okay.
Yeah, we thought it would be good to keep consistent with sales and discharge to match, so people can keep it straight.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Cole. Anyone else wishing comment?
I really don't have my name is Tim Ernst. I really don't have a dog in this fight, but just listening to what's been said, I think all you guys, by shortening the days, all you're doing is punishing the business people, because putting rules and times in place, it's gonna be like a dog chasing his tail trying to enforce them. And, you know, I know the fireworks that's going off last year in my neighborhood, a lot of it was not bought in Norfolk, Nebraska, because it was cracking like dynamite and what have you. And, you know, that's not these guys' fault. And there's no way the police can enforce it unless they're standing right there, one goes off right in front of them or something. You know, it's, all you're doing is punishing the salesman, that's it. And you were going on about sales tax, more sales tax stuff before.
Right.
Okay, there it is.
Right. So, like, in this, what would be, we've asked everybody else.
What?
So what we've asked everybody else who came up, what would be your suggestion
I'd
then?
leave it the way it
It
is.
is.
Because you're trying to make a rule that you can't enforce. You know the time, you can't enforce it. You know, the police have enough problems trying to enforce what rules are on the books already, and then you go ahead and put some more out there, time restraints and stuff. There ain't no way. That's all.
Thank you, Tim. Anyone else?
I'm Kim Davis.
You-
I've heard an awful lot of statistics being pushed around up here, and I don't think there's grounds for half of them. I live in Ward 4. I've never talked to anybody about fireworks. Neither have any of my neighbors. But this chamber is so good about comparing themselves to other cities. Grand Island, 28th of June to 2 July, 8 to 10 p.m. 3rd July, 8 to 11. 4th of July, 8 to midnight. North Platte, 28th of June to the 3rd of July, 12 noon to 10 p.m. On the 4th of July, 8 to midnight. Omaha only allows 2 days, the 2nd through the 4th, from 12 p.m. to 11. So,
Hold on. What changes would you, Kim, what would you, I've asked everybody, so what would you like to see be done for possible changes?
I like fireworks. I'm just saying, you guys are always comparing. Well, we need to do this because that's what Kearney does. We need to do this because that's what North Platte does. Well, let's look at these other cities. When we had that meeting a couple months ago, there was a chamber full of people who were asking to limit these dates. What about them?
Thank you, Kim. Anyone else?
My name is Kurt Lammers. I've spoke to you, I know, once before. And I think a lot of people are acting like we're going to eliminate fireworks. That's not really the case here. I think we just want to cut back the number of days. Okay? And I guess I have a question for you. Why is it illegal for 355 days? I believe it is in Norfolk. It's not illegal to light off fireworks?
You have,
Well, you have to have a special permit, exactly. There's a reason for it, is because it's kind of dangerous and it's annoying to a lot of people. Now, why we have to go on for 10 days, to me, is, I don't know. We don't celebrate other holidays for 10 days. And let's not make this a political or religious thing, okay? But most of those days, we celebrate one day. 4th of July, we think we have to do it 10 to 14 days, whatever it's been. And there are people that suffer for it. You can say we have to deal with it. Why should we have to deal with something that is that dangerous, annoying, and hurtful to some people, and I know animals? Because I do have a dog, and he does not like fireworks at all. He shakes in the basement. I've told you that before. And I'm not the only person. I can't believe how many people have said they haven't talked to anybody that dislikes fireworks, because I haven't hardly talked to anybody that really likes to have fireworks for 10 days. So once again, you know, why do we do it? Why is it illegal other days? So for those 10 days, do we just, you know, not worry about, you know, disturbing the peace laws or anything like that? I can play my stereo as loud as I want to those 10 days? Call it firework? And like I say, it seems to be a matter right now of money over what's right. And when there's people that suffer from this, to me it makes no sense. I don't care if you are making a little bit of money off it. If other people are suffering, it's wrong. I'm sorry, that's the way I feel. And I do think it needs to be cut back. And I understand, as a kid, I lit off fireworks when I was a kid. I understand doing it around the 4th. I guess the amount of time, 5 to 7 days, I could live with. I see 7 as a compromise, a fair compromise. I don't like it. I'd like to go more, but I understand there are people that like fireworks.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Okay.
My name is Kathy Sanders, and I am also co-owner of Fly By Night Fireworks. I am up here kind of on a different note. We are a small business, and we are located right here in Norfolk, Nebraska. We've been here for 24 years, okay? I don't know how many of you know that, but we've been here that long. We generate thousands of dollars for our community, for taxes and revenue that brings into the city. We also bring in money from our first class cities that you guys want to talk about: Omaha, Grand Island, Kearney, Lincoln. We have construction workers that come to our community, work here, leave, go home on the weekends. They can't purchase fireworks in Lincoln or Omaha because they can only do it for 2 days or 3 days. So in return, cutting it down to 10 days is not going to stop people from lighting them on your certain time periods. We already have Mother Nature to fight against us. We were told last year that they couldn't shoot fireworks for 2 days because it was windy and dry. On the 3rd and the 4th this year, it rained. So that cut us down to, what, 4 days right there? 5 days? So we don't need any more cuts on our times or days. We have Mother Nature in the city of Norfolk to do that for us. Because I run the stand on 1st and Norfolk Avenue. As you know, First Street has been closed all summer long. That did affect my sales for my business. That's not the first time that that street has been closed in 5 years. As you recall, it was closed 5 years ago. That also affected my profit. I live here, I work here, my kids go to school here, I graduated here, my husband graduated here, and my 2 partners graduated from Norfolk. You guys want people to come here and start their businesses and bring their businesses to this town? I suggest that you support local businesses. Thank you.
What would be your suggestion for the days then? Or what would be your suggestion, like with the, obviously you don't want to limit the days, but is there a time frame, you know, like during the day?
I would like to see sales from 10 to 11, but you can have the shooting from 10 to 10. Leave the 3rd and the 4th the way it is. People are off on the 4th, so have a committee on the 3rd and 4th. Because like the gentleman said prior, We have people that come in and like to shop before, the rush. They might shop before they go on vacation. So they don't want to come in there when it's 100 degrees and it's 10. They want to come when it's 10 o'clock in the morning when it's cooler. Or they come at 9 o'clock at night when it's cooler. Oh, yeah. Well, 11 o'clock, 10 to 11 for the sale.
Thank you, Kathy. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm a Vietnam vet. And I had Christmas Day.
Can you tell us your name, sir, please?
Walt Haberman.
Thank you.
And I landed Christmas Day of '66. And got out of there in November of '67. The first time when your fireworks are going off, your heart just about stops. You just damn near want to pass out. Say to hell with it. There's a lot of guys that are veterans, don't even go out, they go in their basement so they can't hear it. They don't like it. You don't need 10 days. 2-3 days is enough time, period. You don't need to have all that. All you're doing is talking about money, money. Well, what about the vets? You don't have them coming up here and saying, hey, don't do it. It's not good for the veterans. Just think about it. When your heart damn near stops, and you don't lose it. That's 54 years ago. I still got it. First one was off, you damn near want to die right there. Just don't put it anymore. Get it down there like 2-3 days and leave it at that. Point blank. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name's Sarah Abler. I'm one of the co-owners of Fly By Night. We appreciate and support the vets and understand that some have a problem with the fireworks. My partner Eric, he probably wouldn't tell you this, but his dad was in the Korean War and got 3 Purple Hearts and a Silver Star. He probably had PTSD before anyone was talking about it, and he's the very reason why Eric got into fireworks. I've had members of my family that have served in the military all the way back to World War I. And I currently have my cousin's kids are serving in every branch of the military except the Space Force. So we support our vets, but they also fought for our freedoms. And our freedoms, I think, are being infringed upon if you keep inching away at them. And we need 10 days because, like Kathy Sanders was saying, we're already dealing with Mother Nature. High winds, drought, rain, that all cuts into our days. We have 10 days to sell. And if on the years we're lucky enough to get 2 weekends, people who do shift work have to work one weekend, then they have the other weekend to celebrate. Or kids go on between divorced parents' homes. It's nice to have the 2 weekends every couple years when that comes around. We also understand shift work. Eric's done shift work for over 30 years, so did my husband. Kathy did it for 10 years. You learn how to sleep through stuff. When it comes to animals, Sanders and I, we both have dogs. I have cats. I've been a volunteer for the animal shelter for over 15 years and continue to do so. My animals don't like it either, but it's 10 days. And I served on the board of directors for 6 years of the animal shelters. So I feel bad for animals and livestock, but again, it's 10 days. You guys want to say government works best when the public's involved? Well, some of you might not like it, but the Norfolk Daily News did 2 polls. In 2021, it was just between 10 days and 7 days. In 10 days won out 57%. Then in 2023, I couldn't find the results. I asked the Norfolk Daily News. I spent a good amount of time at the library today. But the snapshot, the day before it closed, it was, the options were 10 days, 7 days, 3 days, and the 4th only. Both of these polls were the largest ever in Norfolk Daily News history. The first one was 551. The second one had 503 respondents. That's a pretty good sample size. Of the 4 options, 10 days was 38% in favor of 10 days. The second runner was 19.5 for 7 days, and then 25% for 3 days and 7% for the fourth only. So if you want public input, let's take a look at that right there. And people aren't going to call the councilman like, yeah, keep up the good work, when you don't even know it's on the ballot or anyone's fighting it. You hear from the people who are complaining. So this has come up before. It was tabled. Then, you know, there was supposed to be a subcommittee thing 2 years ago. Nothing ever became of it. This year there was a subcommittee that was formed. I didn't know when it was, so I wasn't able to go, but it was my understanding that the 3 council members who attended said, we don't want to change anything. And then I see here that you changed it to 10 days. What the heck do you guys even waste your time having a subcommittee for? If one councilman or whatever can just say, oh, we didn't like what the subcommittee came up with, and you just change it. I don't like that. It seems disingenuous. Yeah, like, get involved, but not really. So, and then the chamber and this council is always saying support local. Small business needs your help. Well, here's a local small business that needs your help. And I hope you vote to keep it 10 days. I'm not big on the hours. I guess we can come to a compromise. I'd like to leave it at 11 and midnight on the 3rd and 4th. If we have to go to 10, we can, but again, it doesn't get dark till about 9:30 or 9. So, and by the way, I'm happy there's a young pyrotech in the audience. So anyway, it's sales tax revenue for you guys. You guys seem to like to spend money, and we have a budget problem. I don't think you want to turn away tax revenue, not only from our stands, but all the other stands too. So let's see. I don't know if, and you know what? It's a lot of work to set up a store, put the tent up, racking, get the inventory up and priced, and make sure your equipment's
Sir, we're
working.
over 5 minutes now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? What's that?
Hi, I'm Janet Miller.
Evening.
I help manage 2 different stands, one for the Battle Creek cheerleaders, which keeps them from knocking on your doors, selling things that you don't need, so you're welcome. The other is my daughter, who is putting herself through college. She works her tail off to run this fireworks stand, and I appreciate her initiative and her work ethic in trying to get this done so that she doesn't come out with a ton of student loans when she's done. I would ask you to keep the 10 days. Regardless of how dry the year is, we always get a monsoon come through our stand, which shuts us down during a prime selling time. So if we only have 1 weekend to sell, that's going to cut our sales significantly. Also, as far as the hours, I would ask that you don't go as late as you had recommended. We have a lot of shoppers come into town for groceries and miscellaneous other items. If we're not open when they're in town, they're going to go somewhere else, or they're just not going to be able to get their fireworks. You know, when you were talking the mall in the area that we bring shoppers in from, we do have a significant number of people at our stand from out of state, from, you know, several counties away. And so if we're not there when they're there, we lose out. So I just ask you to keep the 10 days, and I would ask to go no later than 10 o'clock in the morning as far as sales. Thank you.
Yeah.
She will.
I think so. Good idea.
Okay, Stacy Anderson. So I have stands for Bellino Fireworks, and I had to make my little notes here because I might forget. So I actually have 6 stands, 3 in Norfolk, 2 in Columbus, and 1 in West Point. And I bring up Columbus and West Point because somebody had mentioned, Mr. Arns, I think you did 10, 10, 10. So Columbus does 10 days. They sell from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. West Point is 10 days, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. We, of course, go until 11. And so I do think that cutting the selling days, which I don't know if I would want any of your seats, by the way, because I don't feel like this is an easy decision, right? When you talk about vets and like all of that stuff, animals, I think we are the only ones that have a dog that loves fireworks because we actually have to put her in her kennel. So I'm probably a minority right there. But when it comes to selling hours, we do have a lot of big sales that happen before noon. So if we cut the time to noon, we're going to miss out on a lot of those like out of town sales. And we do have a lot of people who come into town and they do other shopping. And so the years that we can hit our 10 days and we get 2 weekends, then we're also losing, revenue in the city of Norfolk where they can eat, they can shop, and they can do that while they're here for their 10 days. And then when we talk about 10 days, because Mr. Clausen, you've asked what's your compromise with 10 days, right? So we don't actually get to sell for 10 days. So we have the selling time of 10 days, but technically we don't really get that with weather, right? And big bang boom and all of those things. And then the people don't actually get the full 10 days to light it off just because we do live in Nebraska. And so I don't really know what a good compromise is. I feel like no later than 10 in the morning would be great for selling time because I think that really helps, those out of town sales. And then I do think that some of it I question, does it come down to enforcing the laws that we have? But I also know that that's probably a huge challenge. And for the officers that are out patrolling and just, is that even possible? I really don't know, how that actually looks. The other thing was brought up was selling time. So Iowa actually did get rid of fireworks sales for quite a while. When they brought them back, they now sell for 14 days or more, which is actually kind of crazy. So I think sorry, I had to kind of look at my notes. I think that's it. Yeah, besides fundraisers for groups, because 4 or 5 of my stands are all fundraisers. So that's huge for those kids. And yes, then they don't have to go sell things. So that's it. Was I 3 minutes?
That's pretty good. Thank you. Thank you.
223.
Anybody else? All right. Looks like that's it. Now, council, the decision is yours.
I think they bring up a good point. When stands go up, it does bring rain. Every single time it rains, at least one day, a downpour. I would say, obviously I spoke earlier what I have heard, but again, here, I think we've heard quite consistently that stand owners would be fine with 10 in the morning till 10 at night, 11 on the 3rd, and midnight on the 4th for 10 days. Whether that's our moving forward as a recommendation or table and think about it, I don't know, but I think that's what we're hearing as a general consensus.
I guess I would like to chime in on that. I'd rather stay consistent and not change the 3rd to 11 p.m. The 10 days, whether it's 10 days or 7 days, you're still not going to change the problem. You're going to have loud fireworks going off. If it's 7 days, 10 days, if it helps their business for 10 days, I understand that. I think 10 a.m., I really think the compromise to shorten it to 10 p.m. is really going to help a lot of people. I think there's a lot of people that's, other than Corey, that's typical bedtime, and I think that could make a pretty positive change in this situation. I think it's a good compromise. The interesting, thing on you bring that poll up, the last one in 2023, and 38% wanted to keep it at 10 days, but 44% wanted to go 7 days or less. So in reality, that combined, you take 19, 25, and 10. So you actually have more people wanting less than 10 days. So
Okay. All right, it's council discussion now.
yeah, I'm sorry, but the numbers are what they are, right? So, and I also believe that the sale and the discharge probably should, they should mirror each other. I think those times should be the same.
And, you know, and speaking on that poll, we got roughly 500 people respond to that poll. We're sitting at 3% of the population. I mean, just some rough numbers based off respondents. It's a big picture. I know this is a very hard decision, but looking at those percentages and the actual number of respondents versus people that are in the town, we got a really low percentage of just respondents across the board that either may not read the paper or just didn't vote just because, like a lot of you said, you're not heard, you know, at the end of the day. So adjustment, I feel like, needs to be made. If that goes from 10 to 7 or 10, 10, 10, like Frank suggested, I think there's some type of compromise that needs to be made. I mean, if you go from 10 to 7 days, that ain't stopping nobody from buying fireworks. Because I think Mr. Lammers brought that up, that we're not stopping the sale of fireworks. People are still going to come, and for the next 2 years, you're not getting 2 weekends. I just checked that. You're not getting 2 weekends. Variables also. It's going to rain. It's going to snow. You can't travel in 8 feet of snow on Christmas. I mean, you're gonna have variables. So if the tents go up and the rain comes, most of the time we need the rain. But, you know, I think we need to make a decision there that we're going to adjust times or figure out what we need to do, because this has been brought up, tabled, and it's still a discussion at the end of the day. And some of the numbers that's been thrown out really need to be taken in context of what is being represented.
I don't think we need to table this. I think it needs to come to a head tonight, and I would actually make a motion to change the ordinance that's in front of us, number 5855, to read 10 days, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., and then on the 4th, do not amend that. That's what I'd recommend.
Clerk, so 4th, you leave 8 a.m. to midnight?
I don't think the times on the 4th should be amended.
8 a.m. to midnight on the 4th?
Let's get this spirit.
Just clerk.
So,
About the 3rd, what's that feeling? Because a lot of
No.
time, that's
No.
when a lot of people are gonna light them off, is the 3rd, because they're going somewhere on the 4th.
Well, this year, the 3rd's on a Wednesday night.
Yeah, but most people have the 4th off, you know what I'm saying, so.
But they go to work on the 5th.
Right.
Why don't we lengthen the 3rd and shoot the 4th?
Hey, this is a policy that hasn't been changed in 52 years. This is pretty drastic right now.
So we have a motion made, and let's clarify the motion, and then
I'll
we can.
clarify it. I would like to change ordinance 5855 to read 10 days, starting at 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., which would be June 28th through July 3rd. All right, I'm sorry, the 25th. And then remain, or 4th of July right now remain the same.
Remains the same. But the 3rd is not addressed, but, right, the 10 is, that's part of the thing. Okay.
Through the 3rd, that was my motion.
Okay, that's the motion. All right.
10 p.m. through the 3rd as well.
All right, there's a motion.
Hold on, what about the sales of fireworks then?
Sale and discharge the same.
Can I ask a question before there's a second?
Well, we can have a motion
We have a
second, then have
then
discussion.
Okay, we do.
Is there a second on the amendment?
I'll second.
Okay. No discussion on the amendment.
So my question, I guess, is if, we're obviously gonna vote on this now. If this gets voted down on this proposal, are we back to square one, or is this whole ordinance done today, or how's this work?
Well, first we'll vote on the amendment. If the amendment doesn't pass, we're back to what's in front
Okay,
of you
so the
here.
vote is just the amendment, not the whole ordinance off, when we're
Right,
done
that
for the
will
day.
come next. And if the amendment is approved, we pass on first reading only, and it'll go back to Danny's office, and she will bring it on second reading in final form with the amendments made.
And if it's not approved, somebody else could bring a different amendment today?
Right, if that.
Right?
Yeah.
Correct.
I just want clarification, everybody knows.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions or comments, council?
So this is 10 days, 10 a.m. to 10, 8 a.m. on the 4th until midnight. So we still get 10 days.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, please vote.
Voting in favor of the amendment, Franklin, Arms, Webb, McCarthy. Voting in opposition, Norton, Clausen, Hildebrand. We would need a fifth if the mayor would provide that.
I knew you guys were going to do this to me. Every time. I will vote yes.
With mayor providing the fifth vote, that amendment passes.
Okay. First reading, so we're past that, so then it'll go back to Danny's office for.
Well, that's just the amendment.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yes. All right, it's been a long night, yes. Okay. All right, so the amendment becomes the underlying ordinance, and so we're back at discussion if there is any further on the underlying ordinance that has been amended. No discussion? Do we have short title?
An ordinance of the city of Norfolk,
Okay.
Nebraska to amend section 14-230 of the official city code to amend the dates and times that permissible fireworks may be discharged, to limit the dates and times that permissible fireworks may be sold, to provide when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and provide for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Now please vote.
Voting in favor. Rehnquist, Arms, Webb, McCarthy, Clausen. Voting in opposition, Norton and Hildebrand. Ordinance number 5855 carries on first reading. First reading only.
Okay. We are not quite done yet. There's another item on the agenda, item 32, under administrative reports, and that is the 2023 snow and ice plan.
It was very similar to what.
Will, Ewell, our streets director,
I mean, it was
so,
the exact same as what.
always gets put on the last place on the agenda. Lucky you.
Forward to 8 a.m.
The abbreviated version, the abridged version, please.
I know what you're saying. Maybe we should only go out
But we heard back and forth.
And they didn't. All right, so I think in your package, you guys have the full snow plan, and then this is just a PowerPoint package as well. So, the lane miles stayed about the same as last year. And the emergency snow routes as well. That didn't change there. I believe in the snow plan, it shows that we also plow out 65 plus cul-de-sac after the event downtown. So it's quite a process. The existing snow operations, kind of like always, it's the timing of the storm for when we start. On a typical storm, we'll probably start at 2, just for clearing downtown and stuff, and parts or whatever there. The snow removal consists of 23 street and fleet personnel. The equipment consists of 15 snow plows, 4 loaders with pushers and blades on them. One loader we can switch to a blower if we need it. We got 2 pickup with plows that mainly focus on the alley. And then we got
9 trucks with salt units in them, either salters on the back or split-in units. And then with the budget this year, we purchased another brine units. Now this year we'll have 5 brine trucks for brining. Updated the brine facility as well. Added another tank, so now we'll be storing 30,000 gallon of salt brine, 10,000 gallon of salt brine and geomelt blend. Then we have a 5,000 gallon tank to hold the beef juice in. Snow emergency routes in downtown. So they're the first ones that we plow. This year I think might be a slide or 2 down. We've kind of drawn up a new map on how the snow emergencies will get plowed. There's 4 different routes with the trucks we have now. So those varies by how many's on each route, but those all get split up and those will be being plowed at the same time before we go into residential. Might even have a couple trucks that will get into residentials right away, just with the trucks and stuff that we've purchased. It just gets us into the areas faster. Downtown will be done like last year. We'll be piling it. Try to get it off in Norfolk Avenue the best we can. And then we did have a couple complaints on handicap zones last year, and so we're working where we'll be piling that. And of course, it depends on the size of the snowstorm. Smaller ones we can get on side streets, but the bigger ones we may pile in the middle, the west end or something, and then that gets hauled out that following night at midnight, or and we'll just readjust our time to how big the snow is. That there is just much faster for us to push it and pile it, and then we have nobody that's interested in help us plow downtown at all. So for hauling and stuff, but it seemed to work out good last year. ASPM might help us out a little down there as well when we're piling, but for the most part that'll be our shop guys piling that. Also on the next map, that one there has some of the routes we use to run for snow emergencies, but left that on there mainly. That's the areas that we go into when the guys break out and after we do the emergencies, we'll go in the areas. For the most part, the snow emergencies probably take us 2.5 hours, probably the way we have them split right now. So they'll be in the residential earlier than they ever have. So most of the time they'll be in the residentials by 4 o'clock. Some of the bigger trucks will remain on the emergency. That's off from there. That kind of went backwards, but that first slide on the front, that's one of the new plow trucks that we ordered 2 years ago that we finally got delivered here a couple weeks ago. We were supposed to have them last year for plowing, but just everything pushed back how it was. That took a while to get here. But the downtown business district, talked about that. Snow emergency declaration declared by the city officials. Usually work with Steve. Start talking with Andy, and it's really on the forecast. We called a couple last year. The storm missed us. We had to call them off. It's you never know what it's going to do. So it's not easy to call them. It's a lot easier for us to clean them. A lot more efficient for us to clean them. And just keep in mind when that, even if it's not a snow emergency, if people can park on one side of the street, it's just that much faster to get done. Some of these streets in town, we can't get through them with the snow plows when they're parked on both sides the way it is now. So just like to throw that out there. And then when that snow emergency does happen, that is the even Steven thing. Everybody parks on the one side of the street. And police does really well with trying to get people moved if we call it early enough. So we'll try to make sure we get it called early enough that people know about it coming home from work the day before, so they can plan for it. The snow emergency notifications, they help dispatch that out on the message board. I think the radio, is that right, Steve? Didn't the radio announce that too? Yeah. So, as many people as we can, but the de-icing operations, we redid the brine setup down in the yard this fall to add in the tank, if you're ever in the area, stop and take a look. Now we can fill 2 trucks at the same time, and we can fill a truck in about 5 minutes with brine. So it's pretty rapid. The way it was before, we were back in by the salt dome, we couldn't load salt, fill brine at the same time. So it'll help us a lot on getting back out of the road. And then no salt streets. First Street from Benjamin to Norfolk Avenue, Benjamin, Riverside to 13th, Michigan, 13th to Highway 81, and Michigan, 13th, Highway 81 to 7th Street, 8th Street, Omaha to Michigan, River Run Road off of Channel Road, New Street off Channel Road, and then the new Prime Stop Way. That's right down now. I don't know that we can, well, let's go down that. But yeah, there's a few. So some of, I mean, it's going to get tracked on there, but we probably want to be limited what we can do. So most of those will try to use a beet juice with them, but that's the type of situation we seeing on temperature. So put that down and it warms up. It gets just like ice, just like it's not. So we got to really watch where we put that down if we're going to use the beet juice. So, and then the enhanced operations, we ran it a few times last year. It won't necessarily consist of 8 guys. With the 4 big trucks we have now, you can run the emergencies with those almost with 4 guys if you need to, with the wings on them, that setup. So we'll see how those are behind stuff. But those will mainly happen if it starts snowing in the afternoon through the night. We'll be ready for that. And that's all I got, unless you have any questions. Well, that was fast.
That was excellent. Thank you, Will. I'll just make one comment. There's a few of us up here that have been getting this report for quite a few years now. What I really appreciate beyond, well, primarily the updated practices and reforms that I think have made operations much more efficient and functional. The fact that we can show some of this equipment that was made in this century is gratifying to me, and I feel like that has something to do with how improvements have been made to the snow removal process. Actually, equipping your crew with the right tools. Hopefully, there's always room to grow, but the right tools generally to do the job, and I think that's made a big difference. In addition to the skills and expertise you've brought to it, Will. So thank you very much. Very good. Any other comments? No. Discussion. All right. I think we've had enough for tonight. We are adjourned. Thank you.